I'm Kimberly Canale. I'm going to show you how to crochet this really cool mesh water bottle holder. This is a goddess crochet pattern. The lady who wrote it actually has a video of how she crochets this as well. So what I'm going to do is, while we're doing this, I'm going to do some extra little tips and tricks that she does not add, just to make things a little different and give you some options. So her pattern calls for either an H hook or a G hook. And for a small water bottle, she says use the G. For a larger water bottle, use the H. I did find it that did work, and it's true. The G is what I used and what I'm going to use again tonight for all this, terrible people that still use the plastic water bottles instead of doing the other ones. This fits the plastic water bottle perfectly. But when I do be good for the environment and I carry a water bottle with me, this actually is a small, it's tall, but it's the same size as the plastic water bottles. So when we start this, I will explain how to change up your circle diameter. It's basically the bottom of whatever water container you want. If you have your metal or your plastic containers, keep that in mind of what you want. If you have the water bottle, they're pretty much the same with a G hook. So this is how you can do it for yours. So if you've got a nice big one, we're going to need to add more rounds to your bottom. And if you're smaller, like I have, you basically stick with the pattern. So to start, I also want to say you can use any kind of yarn with this, anything. It does not matter. I would not go big, thick, bulky yarn because you'd have to change the pattern up completely. If you want to follow the pattern, you can use a worsted weight yarn, which is usually listed as a 4. I've got some really old Windtuck. They don't even make this anymore. This is like from the 80s. It doesn't say it on there, but I know usually when you're looking at a label, on your label, it will show you, put my glasses on so I can see now. It will show you right there. This is a number 4. So that's basically, even though this is cotton yarn, it's sugar and cream. Even though this is a cotton yarn, it's still considered worsted. Some people think worsted is the acrylic. It's not. Worsted just means it's got four little strings combined around one to make it the size 4. So the best is a size 4. That's going to give you the right size. I am going to use cotton for this one. This one was acrylic. This was just Red Heart Super Saver. Stretchy, nice. Cotton will stretch a little bit more. So be aware of that when we're talking about the length of what you want. Cotton has a tendency to stretch out. The nice thing is you also put it in the dryer, shrinks right back down. So think about that. We're going to do, for my example, I am using the cotton for this one. When you start with your yarn, you start with a slip knot. Some people, that seems to be the hardest time that people have, is making a slip knot. A couple different ways you can do that. You can lay your yarn on the table, make a loop with the yarn going over the top. Make a loop, put your hook underneath, grab that yarn and pull it up. Then you grab the string that's hanging there and the string that you started and you pull. And the reason it's called a slip knot is because if I continue to pull, it's gone, just like magic. I do my slip knots. I wrap it over my finger. I put my crochet hook through, grab up my loop, and do the same thing, just pull. And that's what starts your yarn. If you still can't do it, tie a knot. Tie it around, put it, for this pattern, it doesn't matter. Just tie it around your crochet hook, leaving yourself a little bit of wiggle room so it's not too tight to get back into. That's perfectly fine to do. Some people like to use a magic circle. It's called a magic circle when making hats, the little critters, anything like that, they'll use a magic circle. I prefer the method that she has us using because a magic circle has a tendency, unless you really close the yarn in and sew it back and forth and tighten it, a magic circle will get bigger and smaller. It doesn't stay a consistent size. This method is going to give you a permanent hole. It's not going to get any bigger. So what they're having us do is chain 3. So we're going to loop our yarn, pull it through the loop. That's 1. Loop it, pull it through. That's 2. Loop it, pull it through. That's 3. If you were to look at it, it looks like 4 because there's our first knot. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, but you don't ever count that 1 when you're crocheting. For this instance, to make your start of your circle, we are going to use that. A great way to do it is hold it so you've got your end here, your working yarn is attached to your crochet hook. You're going to take your crochet hook and you're going to go into this very first loop. So you're going to go through that first knot, the slip knot that we made. You're going to go through there, grab the yarn and pull it up. And let's just wait. You pull it up. I like to grab it from the bottom. I like to put my thumb right in that hole because then you're going to know where your center is without having any questions. So while you have these 2 pieces of yarn there, you're going to just continue to pull it right through, keeping your thumb in the middle and pull up a loop. Your thumb is right there in the middle now. You know exactly where it is. It's just a nice little trick to know how to get back in there. You are going to chain 2. That's 1 and 2. And now you are going to do, her pattern calls for 11 double crochets into this center. You can see there's the center, in that center. One trick that I have, I am going to do, she counts this chain 2 as a stitch. I am not going to count the chain 2 because what that's going to do is it's going to help fill the gap in. If you don't count it, you're going to have kind of a hole next to your last stitch and your first chain. There's a little hole there. If you don't count your chain 2, it fills that gap in nicely and it makes it a lot fuller. So I am going to not count this chain 2. I'm going to double crochet. To double crochet, you take your yarn, wrap it over your hook, go into the hole, grab a loop, pull it up. You will have 3 loops on your hook. Grab your yarn, go through 2, go through 2. That is a double crochet. We're going to do that again. So that's technically our first one. So that's 1. Wrap it around. So it's called a yarn over, go into that hole, grab the yarn, pull it up. You will have 3 loops, go through 2, go through 2. That's 2. We're going to keep going with this. Go through, pull it up. That's 3 hooks on, 3 yarn circles. Go through 2, go through 2, yarn over. It's a mantra. That's why they say crocheting is extremely relaxing, because you're kind of repeating your pattern back and forth to yourself. So it's yarn over, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2, yarn over, go through the hole, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. We're going to keep doing this until we have 12. She said 11. We're going to count that. If you want to count the chain, it would be 12. Try to keep your little tail end out of your way. If you want, you can try to work it into your work, but I've always found that makes it too thick. So I just like to go back later with a needle and feed it in. So 2, 2, go in, 2, 2, go in, 2, 2, go in, 2 and 2. Now, if you forget where you are, you weren't paying attention, you set it down. I'm going to pull this out a little bit so I don't lose my working yarn. So let's count. We're not going to count this chain. You can see it looks funny because it's very thin. So we're not going to count that one. So we're going to count the next one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And because I said I'm going to do 12, I'm going to do one more. So technically it gives me 13. If you follow her pattern and you want to count the chain too, you'll have 12. We have 13. You are going to need to connect this now, because now you have what looks like a little mandarin orange slice. You want to connect the two to make a circle. So you're going to look over here. There's a couple ways that you can do this. If you look down this way, you see there's a V on your top stitch of where you did your chain 2s. You can see a V. You're going to go through that little V. If I pull it apart, there's a little hole there. I like to connect mine that way. If that is too difficult and you're having a really hard time finding that V, what you can do is, because we did this chain 2, all you have to do is go in the middle of that stitch. So you pull out your first double crochet, and here is your chain. Go right in between those 2 stitches. Grab your yarn. You have 2 loops. Pull it through. That's called a slip stitch, because you didn't make your yarn any higher. I'll show that again. Find your chain. There's your first double crochet. Put your hook through the center of those stitches. Pull up a loop, but then go right through there. If you want to do it the way that I normally do it, find that chain, and at the very top, you'll see the V. You're going to kind of push your needle in there. I've moved it around so much, it's hard to see. Spread it apart. I'm going to go right through that V stitch, pull up my yarn, and pull up. So now you have your circle. What's nice about doing the method that she had is that circle is in the middle, is not going anywhere. If you had done it with a magic circle, you could pull it, you could shrink it. It's a little hard. So there's your circle. That is your very beginning of your base. Now what we need to do is we need to make the base bigger, because that's too tiny. So now we're going to do an increase row, and we're going to go around. So you're here with just one loop on your hook. We're going to chain 2, 1, 2. Again, I am not going to count that. I'm going to again pretend that's not there. I am going to double crochet. So that means wrap it around, go into that V, pull up a loop for 3, pull through 2, pull through 2. She has you, for her pattern, this is 2 double crochets. She's counting these as 2. I don't want to count that, so that means I have to do another one. So I'm going to yarn over, put my hook through, pull up, I have 3, go through 2, go through 2. So in actuality, it's going to look like I have 3 double crochets, but I'm not counting that chain stitch. So I have 2. What we're going to do now is we're going to double crochet in each of these, 2 double crochets in each of these stitches. To tell your stitches, when you pull it to the side, you can see V's. There's a V, there's a V, there's a V. That's what we're going to be going into. When you hold it up this way, you can kind of pull it up and you can see those are your stitches. First row is always kind of the hardest, but you can see as I pull it up, the V, I'll put my crochet hook through 1. You can see your V. You can see I'm through a hole. There's a single little line, and then there's a space. Some people double crochet just right through the space. So they don't worry about the V, they just go right through. The problem with doing that is you're going to have a very large hole. So if you don't mind holes in your work, that's okay to do. But if you prefer tighter, I can show this. This is the round that we just did. Now we're working on this circle. So as you can see, looking around here, I have tiny little holes in between my stitches. So there's a double crochet, there's a hole, there's a double crochet. If you were to go into that space, you wouldn't have the little circle, you'd have these big gaps. So my preference and what most crocheters do, they go through the little holes. So you're gonna find, I have a tendency to use my thumb and my middle finger to help me get into the stitches because that first row is usually a little tight. So I kind of wiggle my thumb in there. There's my hole. You can see the one line and there's the V. Yarn over, go through that hole, bring up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. I need to do another one. So I'm going to go into that same hole, bring up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. So now, not counting the starting chain, I have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to double crochet, put 2 double crochets in each and every little hole there, the little V's. So there's my V, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2, yarn over, bring up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2. That's 2 more. Yarn over, go through 2, go through 2, go through 2, go through 2. What we're doing is we're just going around this circle, putting 2 in each. If you set it down and you have to go do something, you want to pick it up again, and you think, okay, well, always, whenever you set it down, pull up a loop. Trust me, pull up a loop. You don't want to, crochet is the easiest thing to pull apart, or what they call frogging. You don't want to frog. So always pull up a big loop. So if I set this down, I thought, oh, I have no idea where I am. Did I do just one? Did I do two? Well, then take your time to look at it. Say, oh, look, I have just one here, but I have two in this stitch. Two here, two here, two here. So I know that since I set that down, I have to do another one in that same stitch because we're putting two in each. So that to always do that. Have a paper clip or a stitch holder and you're going to be setting your work down, you can put it through the loop. That's always a good help. I find, at least with crochet, as long as I pull out a big enough loop, I usually don't have any problems unless you have pets running around who might grab a hold of it, which has happened too. So one thing I want to show, I know some of you are going to be a little bit behind like that, but what I want to show, how do you know where to stop on the second row? How do you know how far to go? Do I go into this stitch just before the crochet? Well, another good thing, always count. Don't count your chain. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. If I were to connect it like that, look at the kind of, it makes a bowl instead of a nice flat circle. So I know just by counting, I have to do, you want it to be 24, we're doubling. So you started with 12, you want 24 because you've done 2 in each. So if you're not sure if you go in that stitch, count your stitches because you know how many you have to make. So I know I have to do 2 more into this one. So there's 1 and 2. This, if you hadn't counted them, you can get confused because that almost looks like a little stitch there where the chain is coming out of. You wouldn't know if you had to go in that or not unless you counted around. So that's the way to always check, know your pattern, know how many stitches you need. And especially when we're making a circle, you start with your initial stitches, whether they be 6 or 12 or whatever your pattern calls for. To do a circle, you're always going to do 2 double crochets into the next circle. So if you wanted to just keep going and make a placemat, you can do that. You're just going to increase the height of your circle each and every time. So I'm at the point where I need to connect in. So I'm just going to find a space in there that works. Pull up a loop. You have 2 on there. Pull it through. And it's called a slip stitch. It's abbreviated SL for slip and ST for stitch. And the reason it's called a slip stitch is because you just slipped through those stitches. You did not make it higher. Single crochet brings it up 1. Double crochet is what we're doing, brings it up the height of 2. Triple crochet brings it up 3. There's even a quadruple crochet, which brings it up 4. You don't see those stitches very often. It's usually single crochet and double crochet. And we will be doing single crochet towards the end. So we'll have a chance to see that. So looking at my circle, I can see, you can always tell what row you're on too. There's my initial hole. That was my slip. That was the 3 stitches that we slipped into. So there's our hole. These were the original 12, 13 for me, double crochets that we did all around. And then you can see these tiny little holes around the circle that is actually the start of your next row. And as you looking at this, they've always said, if you do not make a mistake in one of your projects, you haven't really done a good job. There should always be at least one mistake, because that's what handmade is all about. It's not a permanent thing. So if you look at this, it may not be that easy to see, but what I was talking about, all these little holes, when you go into that little V with the line, you see those cute little holes. Right here, I didn't go through the little hole. I actually went through the space between one of the stitches. So instead of coming up to where my V is and going between the V and the one line, I went through the whole thing. So you can see, if you were to do that through the whole thing, you can see that this hole is bigger. That hole is a little bit bigger there for me, and the stitch goes down a little bit. Nothing wrong with it. Like I said, some people do crochet that way. It's just a matter of preference of what looks good for your own eyes, of what you think. The more common practice is going through the V with the little line, so you have those tiny little holes. But that's, you know, I can say I did that on purpose, but but you can see that that does look a little different. So it gives you a nice example of how it looks. So what we can do with this video is, if you're going a little slower or had to start it again, that's the great thing about a YouTube video. You can pause it, you can rewind. You know, I'm going to continue on to my next row, but if at any time you want to pause it yourself while we're going until you catch up, that's a great way to do it. I have actually crocheted from YouTube videos, not having a written pattern in front of me. I've actually gone with the video. Sometimes I'm faster than them and sometimes I'm slower than them. So sometimes I've had to pause, sometimes I fast forwarded because they weren't catching up to me. So that's a great trick to know. So we have done our slip stitch. We've done our round 2 to make it, to do our double crochets to give it that base. This is our round 2 where we made it bigger. We brought it up. Now, on the pattern for the 3rd step, they want you to increase again. Actually, at this point, you want to take whatever container you want to put it on your circle, and you want to see, well, how does that look as a base? Do I want to do one more row or do I want to stop? If I was going to use my water bottle, I would probably stop. For this one, I think I want to use this one. It's right close to the edge. I'm going to add another row. It's not going to hurt. It may just be a little looser at the bottom and it won't fit tight. And I definitely want to show you what the increasing does. For any circle, when you want to keep increasing, you need to add stitches to increase the number of stitches. You know, right now we have 24. Well, now I want to get to 36. We need to double that again. We need to add another stitch to make it bigger. The 3rd row is a little bit different. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 chains. And the reason you do your chains is to make, we were down here, we have to get up to the height of a double crochet. This is the height of a double crochet. Some patterns, there's never consistency. Some patterns call for a chain 3 when you're double crocheting. This particular author of the pattern felt that that gave her too much of a gap, so she reduced it back to chain 2. I've seen it both ways in multiple cases. So some people will say chain 2, some people will say chain 3. It's just a matter of making your stitch taller. So I'm going to do my chain 2 to get up there. It tells me to double crochet into the next stitch. I am still going to add, I'm not going to count my chain. I want to do that one more row. I'm not going to count my chain because as you can see how nice and filled in this is? There are no gaps. I like that. So I want to do that one more time. So I'm not going to count my chain 2. In this stitch, which is technically, you can see it's connected in there. If I pull that apart, you can see my chain is coming out from here. And then you can see the little line right there. So I'm going to go right into the same hole. I'm going to bring that line up. I'm going to go right into the same where my chain 2 is coming out of. I'm going to go into that hole again. So I'm going to yarn over. I'm going to go in, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. I'm going to do that one more time. Yarn over, go through that same hole, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. So technically I have 3 here, but I'm not going to count that one. So here's a double crochet. Now this is where the pattern changes. Our pattern is going to be do 2 double crochets in one stitch. The next stitch you do 1 double crochet, then you do 2, then you do 1, then you do 2, then you do 1. If I were to go with this, with technically this 3rd row, if I were to go say, just you want to make it bigger, why not just do 2 double crochets like we just did and all of that? It gives it a weird shape. It will not be a round. It will give it a funky, wobbly kind of shape. So you're going to do 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 all the way around. So this was my 2. In my very next stitch here, you can see there's the V. Pull it up so you can see. Cotton, it's a little hard to see sometimes. You can see the line there. The V is on top. The little connecting line is right there. I want to go through the connecting line and the V. So I'm going to yarn over, go through that space. You can see I have the V on top. Pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. That was my 1. So I have 2, 1. Now I've got to go back to 2. So the next stitch, you can see there's my V, there's my very next stitch. I am going to put 2 double crochets in this stitch. There's 1, there's 2. So I have 1 and 2. Now I need to do 1. So here is my next V, yarn over. I'm just doing 1. Now my next stitch, I need to do 2. Pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2, but I have to do 2. So pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. So you'll see the pattern, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So I am going to continue doing that all the way around my circle. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, until I get to the very beginning again. There's my 1. And if you forget where you are, just go back and look. There's 2. You can see it stands alone. There's 1. Oh, I have to do 2 in this one. Because, you know, whenever we do crafts, you get distracted. Suddenly, if you have children, they need something immediately, If you have pets, they need something immediately. You know, anybody else that lives with you, you know, your great Aunt Myrtle is going to decide to call. So always check your work. Take your time. Crafting is supposed to be comforting, easy, relaxing. Keep it relaxing. The nice thing about crochet is if you make a mistake, it is very easy to undo your stitches. Knitting, it's a little harder. It's called, as I said, it's called frogging. I don't mind pulling out work in crochet because I can get it back in quickly. Knitting, I cry a little. There is crying in crafting. So if you can look back, there's 2, there's 1, there's 2, there's 1. It also depends on how tight you are pulling your stitches through, how tight you're holding your yarn. That's called tension. Everybody has different tensions. So if you're finding that you're having a hard time going through your stitches, maybe loosen up on your thread a little bit. Don't go in so hard. You know, pull up your loops a little bit tighter. If you're finding your work is extremely loose, well, then tighten up a little bit. Bring your hooks a little closer. And now, because I'm talking, I can see, oh, I forgot my chain 2 here. I had 2, I had 1. I did another 1, and then I went to my next stitch. So I forgot my second double crochet. To frog, you just pull, 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 pull that stitch out. It brings you to your next one. And it's really nice. The yarn usually keeps your stitches in crochet, usually keeps them up there. So I'm just going to put my hook back in and say, oh, I have to do 2 in this one. So there's my second one. You know, and you kind of do a mantra with that one too. It's like 2. Now it's like 1. Pull up 2, go through 2, go through 2, yarn over. Go in here. Pull through 2, do it again. Yarn over, go in, pull through 2, move on. Go to your next one. Whatever mantra works for you, or if you say, you know what, no, I don't want to talk. I don't want to think. I just want to kind of let my hands do it. Just keep looking back at it and you know where you are. There's 2, there's 1. There's 2, there's 1. I know I need 2. Your different types of yarn are also going to give you different results. Cotton tends to be, it holds its place a little bit better. So it comes a little tighter with your stitches as opposed to wool versus an acrylic wool blend. The nice thing about these water holders, use the cheapest yarn you can find if you want. It's a great use for that. If you're gonna make a sweater, you don't want itchy, yucky stuff because you're putting in a ton of time. You want nice stuff. If you're doing a water bottle holder, you don't really care. Get yarn at the dollar store. They have it sometimes. Get it at a thrift store. Buy a sweater, even though we don't have one here in Corning anymore, but find a thrift store, pull the yarn apart, use that. Use string, use jute, use, you know, anything that looks like twine. So anything you want to use for a water bottle holder, it's a great pattern for anything. All right, I am towards the end of my circle. I'm gonna pull this up. I'm gonna check. That's really what you should do not that it matters, this is your base. So if you've made a mistake, say I made a mistake back here, do I really care? No. If I don't want to rip it out to here, add another stitch right here. That's not going to hurt you too much, but I'm going to just go back and check. There's my chain. I'm not going to pay attention to that. So I have 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. I'm going to continue on. So I've got all these 2 1s, 2 1s. So I did that correctly. But you know, I want to count it because you know what? I've got a stitch here and I've got what looks like a stitch there. Do I go through it? Don't I go through it? Well, let's find out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. I have 37, but remember, we're not counting that. I was supposed to have 36 or 37, so I know, nope, I'm not going in there. I'm going to just connect. So now we're at that same spot to connect. If I want to go through the big hole, just put my hook through that, pull up a loop, and then pull through. I can do that. You can see it doesn't really look any different right there doing it that way versus going into the chain stitch. Both are secure, both are fine. I'm going to go through there and just make my own little hole there, bring through a stitch, pull it through. So this extra chain, you can see, if this wasn't right there, I'd have a really big hole there. So that's why I like not counting the chain 2 as a double crochet. Look at that gap that would be there. So I like that. It just kind of fills in the hole a little bit more. Again, personal preference of what you like. Now would be the time also to say, here's my circle. Let's look at my water bottle. Okay. Now, it's kind of big. It's there, but it's okay. I don't personally mind that. If I were doing this without teaching it, I probably would not have done this row because I like it to go tight because I know that the cotton stretches. So I probably would not have done this row since it was so close to the edge right there. You can see there's a pretty big spacing around, but I don't care if it's a little floppy in there. That's all right. If you put your container on here and it's still not fitting, well, you're just going to add another row. Now is the time where you would add rows. The interesting thing to think about when you're adding rows is the pattern kind of moves up one each time. So first we did 2 double crochets in each stitch. The next time we did 2 doubles, a single, and then 2 doubles, and we did that all around. Now, if I needed to make this one more row, what I would do would be 2 doubles, a single, add another single in there, then 2 doubles. So it would go 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1. And you would continue that all the way around, and that will give you a perfectly round circle. So first 2 in each, then 2 and 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, and continue on and on. So that's kind of a neat way to look at that. So I am going to keep this. I'm gonna have it be this big. So that means I have finished my bottom. This is my bottom. This is what I want to be flat. This is what that's gonna sit on. That's the bottom. Well, now I got to start going up. I got to start making the top up. If I were to just go into our normal double crochets and go around, that's going to make it completely wonky. It would just add a stitch and it would start to fold under. So I have to do something to say, all right, I want to go up. I have to make a side so you can see. You want to make like an L. Here's my bottom. I got to go up now. To do that, as in the pattern, we're always going to chain 2 because we're working with double crochets. So we're going to chain 2. Now we're going to do what is called going into the back loop. We're not going to go through. CRV has 2 loops. This is your front loop right there. That is your back loop of the V. So the loop closest to you is your front loop. The V part behind that, that is your back loop. And that is BL in the pattern. So it'll say back loop. So now that I've chained my 2, this is my chain stitch. I don't have 2 loops here, so I can't go in here, obviously. You can see there's nothing else to go in here. So you know, here's my first V. I'm gonna yarn over, and I'm gonna just go into that one back loop. So you can see I didn't go through both V's like I normally do. I'm going to look at my V, and I'm only going to go into that back loop. So I've yarned over. I'm going to go only in that back loop and do a double crochet, which means yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. And you might panic a little and look at this and say, yes, but look at this big, huge gap that's forming. That's going to go away as we continue on. Because what we're doing right now is we're making, see this cute little ridge that goes around? This is where we're at right now. This makes your bottle stand up. So it said, I'm going to quit being flat. I'm going to go up into the world. I'm going to go up. So now what we're going to do, because we don't need to increase anymore, we're just going to do a single double crochet in each loop. So we don't need to do doubles. We're going to just do a single double crochet all the way around in every stitch. So there's my 1. I'm going to go through my next back loop, bring it up, go through 2, go through 2, yarn over, find my back loop, bring up a loop, 2, 2, yarn over, go through my back loop, bring it up, 2 and 2, yarn over, go through your loop. Depending on the kind of yarn you have, it can also be very easy to split. If you're using cheap yarn, that has a tendency to split very easily. And by split, it's not coiled tightly. Yarns are single tiny strings wrapped around each other. So depending on what ply you have, you've seen 3-ply, 4-ply, 2-ply, depending on the thickness of your yarn, that's just how many more times that they've been wound around each other. And if it's a looser material like cotton tends to be, you can see they're not really coiled together. It's very easy to what's called splitting the stitch. So see, I went through my back loop, but look at, I've only got like 2 little pieces of string here. I've split my yarn. You don't want to do that because that's gonna weaken and could easily rip and break, and then your whole thing will fall apart. So you want to really make sure you don't split your yarn. So I'm just gonna go back there, and if I have one that's not really being nice, I'm just gonna kind of push it together, yarn over, and go through that whole strand of yarn. But that is a very easy thing to do. I think that's for beginners. That is a big problem that many of them have, splitting the yarn. So you can see as I'm kind of going around already, it's already kind of, you can see it, it's coming towards me. It's starting to coil already. It's not laying really flat. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. So we're starting to build our walls, our top. We've done our basement. Now we're going to the first floor. We're gonna continue to go through the back loop with a double crochet all the way around. I'm getting close to my end here, so I just have a few more stitches to go. Continue through here. And I've got one. I'm not going to count that one. So this is the most confusing of, do you go in here or not go in here? You can see right here where it slants up. I'm not going to go in there, but I do need to go in this little one. That's always your confusing one. If you continually miss it, you're just going to kind of lose stitches and it's going to go in. No big deal. It's workable. We're going to slip stitch through. So now I have 2 walls. If you wanted to make it even a little tighter, you could do that row again if you wanted to. I find it satisfactory for the bottle. I think just the 2 rows, it's enough. It comes up far enough. So now we're at the point where we have our base. Now we need to do our mesh. This is our next mesh stitch. This has given us enough of a base to make it sturdy. Even if it's moving around a bit, it's good. Now we're going up for mesh. In the pattern, it's basically the next 9 rows are going to be your mesh stitch. It's rows 6 through 14. Might be a different number for you if you've added or, more on the bottom. But this is your mesh. This is where you can change things up if you would like. You can see the pattern. This is what it looks like as made, as written in the pattern. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are my 9 rows. I have 9 rows of mesh. If you wanted to get fancy and maybe do 3 rows of mesh and then maybe 1 row of solid, you can flip that out. Go 2 rows of mesh, a solid, 2 rows of mesh, a solid. You could do that if you want. I like the look of the mesh, so we're gonna finish it up the normal way, but this is where you can change it up. This is also where you go if it's not tall enough. For a water bottle, the 9 rows of mesh, it fits perfectly. This is exactly where you would want it to be. It's not covering the top of the bottle, which, you know, it's going to stretch. So if I had my things connected, you can see that stretches a bit. So it kind of comes up to the top. I wouldn't want to make that any taller. If I was going to use this container, I might say, well, you know, that's going to be a little tippy. That's not really, with this connected, that's not really enough. So with this container, I would probably bring it up 4 more rows, maybe even 5. So depending on what your container is, that's where you decide. You want, whatever your container is, you want it, your mesh stitch to stop probably about that far, about maybe an inch from the top of whatever your container is, because we're going to be doing 2 rows of single crochet. So you want it probably an inch from the top. So now we're going to do our mesh. This time we're going to chain 4. Normally we were chaining 2, but our stitch is going to be a double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet, chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet. What the chain 1 is doing, it's filling in for that skipped stitch. You have to do that, otherwise you'd make a V, you'd make a triangle, a point. You have to, since you're skipping a stitch, you have to compensate for that somehow, and that's what the single crochet does. And the reason we're chaining 4, so technically 1, 2, there's your double crochet. We need to bring it up to a chain 4. She instantly kind of went back to chain 3 and go up. So that's why it's 4. You could do 3 too, but I like the added height. So we're chaining 4. This is the stitch it came out of, so we're not counting this one. You can see this is your next stitch. I don't want to go in there. I'm gonna skip this stitch. So here's my chain. There's my stitch that I'm gonna skip. I'm gonna come over to this one. So I'm gonna yarn over, go through my V, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2, and then chain 1. So you can see there is my first mesh block. They're going to be like little tiny squares. So because I chained 1, I'm going to skip this stitch. I'm going to go into this one. Yarn over, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2, now chain 1. Skip, go into this stitch. Pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2, chain 1. Skip this one, go into this one. Yarn over, go through 2, 2, 2, now chain 1. We're skipping, we're going into the next one. You can see with your crochet stitch, go through 2, go through 2, go through 1. You can see your stitch that you're working in is a little bit, it's first. It's a little bit on the right-hand side of your double crochet. So if you get confused, you can see how that hole right there is more on the right. It's not, you know, can't be directly on top. It goes more to the right, but when it's standing, when it's finished, you can see these line up. So I know I want to skip that one. I want to come over to this one. Go through 2, go through 2, go through 1. Skip into the next. Now I'm going to show you, you're going to also know with this one, say I just do a double crochet, I skip it, I don't do my chain 1, I skip it, and I'm going to do a double crochet in this next one. You can see the difference immediately. See how these are nice? All these are nice little mesh boxes, but then this one became a triangle. It's right close together because that tells me, oops, I forgot to do my chain 1. So you're going to know right away as soon as you do it, it's going to look different. So I'm going to pull that out and get back up into this one. So I know I have to do a chain 1 right here. Skip that stitch, do the double crochet into here. Chain 1, skip, double, chain 1, skip, double. This row goes very quickly, skip, because you're skipping half of your stitches. So this goes a lot faster than the other rows did. Chain 1, skip, come over here, and I'm already almost to the end because I've skipped. Also, I'll show you here's the one I skip. What if I skip this one and I've skipped 2 and gone over? You can see that looks weird too, because see how that puckers? It's because I've skipped too many stitches in between. It's puckering through. So I know I made the mistake there. So you will see if you didn't do it. So I'm going to skip there. I got to go in this one. And again, take your time as you go through, say your little mantra, skip, do a double, 2, 2, chain 1, skip, double, 2, 2, chain 1, skip, double, 2, 2, chain 1. Now I'm close. I'm very close. I'm right here. In fact, I'm right there. I'm not close. I'm right there. Now, I've got this. I don't want to just slip stitch into that because do you see how that would connect that? That would be weird. I still have to make this a mesh stitch. So I've chained my 1. Now I'm just going to find a spot to go into. Usually it's like the second V of your chain 4. So here, I'm just going to go right in through there and slip stitch that in. So now you can see we have our walls. Got this cute little ledge. You have your walls, and now you have your first row of mesh stitches. Technically, you still have the same count of stitches because this little bar right here, your chain 1, that's lining up with the double crochet that you skipped. So you can think of it that way. Even though that's empty space, you still have your bar right there. So the first row of mesh, pretty easy. Second row, a little bit confusing until you get the knack of it. So here I am, I'm connected. I'm back down to nothing. I am going to chain 4 again. For all these 9 rows or however many rows you want to make, you always have to do chain 4. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. You're skipping this space. You're doing, you don't want to go in here. It's a little confusing to see. You can see your V. And if you remember that it's always a little bit past the top of your stitch, there's my V. There's my hole. So we're skipping this. We want to go into that hole. Sometimes you have to pull your fingers, put your fingernails in there and just say, all right, where's my hole? Make my hole. So now I'm going to double crochet in there. Double, chain 1. So now you can see I've made it tall enough. I've done my bar over and I've made my next one. And you can see how nicely Those line right up on top of each other. If you didn't go into the right spot, you're going to know because it's not going to line up. If I set this down and I come back and I look at that and I thought, ooh, did I chain one? Did I forget? Did I do it? Did I not do it? Well, to check it, pull it out. Oh, yep, there's the start. There's the end of my double crochet. If I pull that out again, I'm going to pull that whole stitch out. So I know, yeah, I had one in there. So I know I'm going to keep that there. So I'm going to do my chain one, skip this whole space now. Now it's really easy to know where to go because you don't have to worry about skipping stitches. You're skipping holes. So now we're going to skip that hole. And as you can see here, you can see the hole kind of right there. There's your V, there's your hole. So yarn over, push through that hole, pull up a loop, go through two, chain one, skip the hole, yarn over, go into the double, pull through two, chain one, skip the hole. And now we're going to basically continue this entire stitch. If you're following the pattern and you have a smaller sized water bottle or water container, if it's small, you're going to do this for 9 rows and just keep doing the mesh. Every time you get to the end, you're going to slip stitch in and then you're going to chain 4. Skip your hole and you go into the double crochet. So this part will continue on now for 9 rows. If you have a big bottle and you need to do more, you just keep going with your mesh stitches, you know, and you can test it. Once you get up there a ways, you know, put your bottle in. And as you can see, remember I said I wouldn't have done that. That's not too loosey-goosey. You know, the chain kind of pulls things in. So I'm okay. Even though my edge is way up here in this bottle, I'm just going to lift it up a bit. So that almost gives it a design. It will fit to your water bottle. So that almost looks like I have a row of double crochet and this really cool little stitch line. So that's what that's going to do. So if your container is too big or too small for what you've made, that's what that will look like. It'll be all right. And if it was exactly fitting tight, you wouldn't see that little ridge. That stays at the bottom and it would connect in. So you just continue to go up till you get to about 1 inch from the top. So I will see you back here when we get close to ending our 9 rows. So I'm coming close to my very last few stitches. So I'm going to finish up my mesh pattern here. I've got 1 more to go. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to chain 1 and now connect for the final time into this stitch with a slip stitch. So you can see how it builds up very quickly and you have your stitches. Now, if I wanted, as I said, if I wanted to continue on, if I were going to use it for this bottle, I would probably go up this far. I would probably add many more mesh stitches. For the sake of time frame, I'm going to just say, oh yeah, let's keep it with the little guy. So I'm going to think that I'm going to be done with that one. So now, since we finished our mesh, you can see mesh is wiggly wobbly. It's not that sturdy. It's not sturdy like our bottom. We want to make it sturdy like the bottom again. So So this is technically row 15. And in the pattern, it says we're going to be doing single crochets. So it says to chain one and place a marker. Many different things. I love these. These are my favorite stitch markers. They're easy to use. They come in a packet of a ton of them. You actually are just kind of going through your stitch. You connect it in. You don't have to worry about it falling apart. I like these. But what can you do if you don't have these? Piece of string. All you need is a piece of string. Cut part of your yarn before you start. And when you're told to place a marker, you can either just lay it in there, or after you've done your stitch, do a quick little tie. You've got your marker. So you can use a piece of yarn. You can also use a twist tie from your bread. These make great ones. What you can do is you can put it through where it says to place it, bring it up, twist it a little bit together. You now have a stitch marker, so you know where you are. So those are nice. So you don't have to spend a lot of money. Paper clips are great. Open up a little piece of a paper clip and slide it through. As you can see, one of the problems with the twist ties is they do like to be twisty. So I like this one. I'm going to use that, but those were some options for you. So what it's telling me to do, I need to chain one. It says place a marker. I'm going to put it just right through there. I'm going to slide it through, connect it in. So I know this is the beginning of my row. This is what the reason they want you to place your marker is you want to know where you're stopping, because we're going to go to single crochets now, and double crochets are easy to count and to tell where you are. Single crochets, not so much. So I've chained one because I needed to raise my stitch, bring it up, and because if I were doing double crochet, I would have done 2 or 3, but because I am doing single crochet, I'm only chaining one. I'm going to go into the same stitch right there. You can see that hole. I'm going to go right in there, pull up a loop. So I've got 2. Now I'm going to grab my yarn and pull through both of those. That's a single crochet. You're not pulling through 2 because you don't have them. You just have that one. That was a single crochet. Now I am going to single crochet in each stitch around because I need to get back to the same number of stitches that I had at my base. But wait, you say, there's a hole. What do I do with the hole? Well, that's my stitch in there. I'm gonna go right into this hole. I'm gonna go into the hole, pull up a loop, pull through 2. Now I'm at a double crochet. I can go right through my V, pull up a loop, pull through 2, up, back in a hole, go through the hole, pull up a loop, go through 2. I'm making a stitch now, going through, pulling up 2, going through there. Oh, I'm back at a hole, go through the hole, pull up a loop, pull through 2. Now I'm at my double crochet, go through my V, pull up my loop, go through 2. You're going to do this all the way around, making sure you're going into the hole and into the double crochet. We do this all the way around. Now what the single crochet is doing, this is a nice tight stitch. So you're giving your water bottle holder a nice edge like you have at the bottom, you're doing it at the top. Could you do this with double crochets? Yes, but I like her pattern, and the reason she does single crochets is a single crochet is a much tighter material. It's a much tighter stitch. So by doing single crochets, you're really giving it a lot of strength right up at the top. The only thing you got to make sure is you're going through the hole, through the stitch for each time, because if you don't, you're not going to have, you won't have enough stitches. Would it be the end of the world for this? No, because we're really not doing much else with these stitches. You'd be okay, but it might look a little funny. So you want to make sure you go whole stitch all the way through. And you can see that that went, because it's single crochet, that went pretty quickly. So you can see I'm already to my last, I know I'm at my last one right there because there's my stitch marker. The first row is easy. You say, Kimberly, why did I have to put a stitch marker? You said it was going to be hard to see. I can easily see, here are my single crochets. I know I've only got the hole I have to go into. It's the first row that's not the problem, it's the second row. So what we're going to do, we're going to take the stitch marker off. I'm at the end. I am now going to connect into that chain one that we did. We're just going to slide into that space, pull up a loop, slip stitch. So now I've connected it. So now you can see I have the beginning of a nice ridge coming through. And you can already see it's kind of forcing that hole to stay open now, not caving in on itself. We're going to do another row of this. So to get my, I'm right here at my connection. I have to go up. I have to bring my stitch up. So I'm going to chain one. I'm going to pick my marker back up. I'm going to slip it through there. That little chain one space that I had, you can see it right in through there. Put it through there. And now I am going to single crochet through each and every stitch. And you can see the little V's. Not as easy to see on the double crochets where the stitches are, but you just look for the V's. Because I don't like that gap, I'm gonna, again, not count my single crochet. So I'm gonna go through that hole again, that same stitch, single crochet. Go to my next one, single crochet. You can see your next one, single crochet. So you can see the V's that you have to go through. Looking at it from this angle, you can see there's just a tiny little hole because your stitch is right there because you didn't grow it. Your stitch is right there, but you can still see the V and there's the tiny hole. You don't really see that line like we did with the double crochets very easily. So you just know, go through the hole. So we're gonna single crochet all the way around. Now this is a choice as well. If you want it to go even a little higher, if you want to match your bottom in height, you could do that. You could add a higher top. I'm choosing not to. I'm going with just the 2 rows. But also what we just did with going through the hole and then going through the stitch, if you wanted to add a row of, we talked about adding a stripe, if you wanted to do a pattern, like if you wanted to do 2 rows of your mesh and then do a solid row, that's exactly what you would do to get those stitches. You would either single or double crochet in the stitch, in the hole, in the stitch, in the hole, just like we did. And then if you were going to go back to your mesh, then you have to remember to skip stitches. So that would be a little bit for the more advanced. And you can see what I just did there. I'm talking, and sometimes, you know, talking doesn't always do the pattern. So I went into there twice and I could see that I did that. Would it have been a problem? No. But since I know I did it, I'm going to pull that out. And you can see I've already got a stitch in this hole. I want to go to this hole over here. So when you start to get used to your stitches of what they should look like, it's pretty easy to be able to tell when you've made a mistake. And in some situations, it may not be worth fixing the mistake. There, I believe it is a Japanese proverb that they believe that you must make a mistake when you are knitting or crocheting, because you are putting part of your soul into the project. Because you know, everybody says you make something with love. So you're putting part of your creative soul into this. And if you do not make a mistake, your soul does not have a way to come back to you. It stays trapped into your project. I always thought that was a cool thing. It made me always feel so much better about my mistakes. I'm going to take my stitch holder out. I can see I'm back to the beginning. I'm just going to slip stitch through. I'm going to make this big. So you can see this is a much smaller stitch. Basically 2 rows of single crochet equals 1 row of double crochet. So you can see it's a smaller lip. Personal choice. If you wanted it to be a little more even with the bottom, you know, maybe do 4 rows of single crochet up at the top, and then your top would be about the same height as your bottom. I personally don't mind it. I think it's going to be fine. So technically we're done for this part. Here is your water bottle holder. You can check and see. What happens if I get to this part and I'm like, well, let's use this one. It's perfect for that one. Let's use this one. What if I didn't have this with me? I was just kind of guessing, thinking it was smaller. I was like, oh, that's just not right. I don't like how tippy that's going to be. What you could do, you could either continue all the way up as far as you wanted with single crochet, or rip it all back out, get back to your mesh row, and then just continue your mesh. So you're very flexible of what you want to do with that. But I'm going to say, you know, I'm going to stick with the water bottle. I'm going to say that this is good. So what's our next step? Our next step is our strap. We're not going to take the yarn out. We're going to continue on right from here. With this one, I did not finish the strap. I didn't connect it, and I didn't make it as long as I wanted it to make. This is the part where you have to decide, how do I want to wear my water bottle? Do I want to have it where it's going to go across my body like this and be able to go over my shoulder and then down? And do I want my water bottle to hang at my hip? Do I want it up higher? How long do I really want this to go? This is where you make your decision. Do I just want to have it over one shoulder and have it hang? You need to kind of have an idea of where you want it to go. And that's how long you make your strap. When we're going to be making our strap, as you can see, because we're right here and we're just going to build up in just a small little section, there's no seam. It's just continuing up. But when we make it as long as we want to make it, and we go to the other side, we're going to be slip stitching the strap to the other side. And what's going to happen is you're going to have a little ridge that looks like this. There's no getting around it. There's no way to do it. The only way you could possibly, I tried it many different ways. The only way you could possibly do it is if you take a knitting needle, like a sewing needle, but made for knitting with a bigger eye, and put them top to top and try to sew. I would sew first loop to each other, and then kind of turn it to the other side and go back loop to each one. Then you wouldn't have a gap. So then you would basically have it showing the same on this side and on this side. That's one way. If you don't like the ridge, that's one way to get rid of it. The second way to get rid of the ridge is make your strap as long as you would like on this side, and then stop your work, close it off. Make your loop big, put your yarn through, cut it, put your yarn through, pull it through, end your strap. Then you would flatten your bottle out so your strap is in the middle. And you're gonna look over here. I mean, if you really wanna be anal, you can count how many, if you're a math whiz, you can go through and you can count how many stitches and know that we're gonna have 5 and do the same thing. But if you wanna just eyeball it, you just say, okay, yeah, that's about where I want it. And then you would join your yarn and go over your 5, continue up. When you had your 2 straps, the length that you wanted them to be, you could then slip stitch them together at the top. You'd stitch it, so then your ridge would be at the top, or with a sewing needle, sew it together at the top. So those are the 2 ways that you can do your strap. I personally do not care that there's going to be a little ridge there. That's probably the side that I'll have on my body. And I don't think anybody's going to be looking that closely at my water bottle. So I don't mind that there's going to be a little ridge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my strap all the way up. I'm going to continue and then go all the way down for as long as I want to do it. The way she is having you do your strap is she is using double crochets. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways to do this. So we're going to look back at our pattern and to begin the strap, because we're happy with this, it says to chain 2. So I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2. Her pattern says double crochet into the next 3 stitches. So there's my chain 2. But remember, I wasn't always following her. I like things a little tighter. So I'm going to double crochet into the same stitch. So there's not my gap. I'm going to go to the next stitch. So that's 1, 2, looks like 3, 1, 2, 3. 4. I prefer 5. I want a wider strap. This is going to be your preference. If you want 4, a thinner strap, think about how heavy the water bottle is going to be once you fill it with water. And then think about how heavy that's going to be. If you have a thinner strap, that's going to dig into your shoulder a little bit more. Thus, if you have a wider strap, it's going to be a little bit more comfortable. I found 5 to be the right amount. I had 1, 2, 3, 4. I liked 5. So that's, you could do 6. If you like it at 4, you could keep 4. If you like it at 5, you could do 5, you could do 6, you could do 7, however wide you wanted to do it. You just have to make sure whatever you do on this side, you're doing on the other side, and you have to make sure you can be able to put your water bottle in. So I'm going to stick with 5. So I'm going to count, even though I put that right there, I just didn't want it to be so loosey-goosey. So I'm going to count that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have to make our stitch taller. So we're going to chain 2. The way she has you do it, I'm going to show you that. She's going to chain 2. You are then going to go double crochet, go into this hole. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but then we had that, so that's 5. If you continue doing it that way, when you double crochet like that, I don't know if you can tell by this, but you can see things are a little closer here. There's a big hole here. Closer here, big hole here. Closer here, big hole here. And it kind of zigzags. It doesn't always stay straight. If you like that and you don't mind, that's perfectly fine. Just continue double crochet turning, doing your 5, your chain 2, then your 4 double crochets or however many you want all the way up. If you don't mind kind of this big hole on each side. If you do mind the hole, I'm going to show you a new little trick. I'm going to take this out. This is a cool little trick I just learned. So I haven't chained, I haven't done anything. Instead of chaining, I'm just going to turn my work right around. And there's the same hole my chain is coming out. I'm going to put my hook in, draw up a loop. So now I have 2. I'm going to do a single crochet. Now we need to do double crochets. How am I going to turn this single crochet into a double crochet? Here's a cool little trick. You can see the 2 lines. There's a line there and there's a line there. We're not going to go in this one because if we went in this one, we'd take our stitch right back out. So we're going to go into of our single crochet this line. I'm going to go into this line, pull up a loop, and now finish the single crochet. So basically, it's called a stacked stitch. So basically what I've done is I've stacked a single crochet on top of the single crochet. And what that's going to do is that's going to give me a much straighter edge and less gaps. I did that on this one. You can see I don't have the big holes on the side. It does go out a little bit. It's a little V, but it's much straighter than this one that has the gaps that will go back and forth like that with the big holes. So this is a neat little trick to do only for your first stitch. And I'll do that again. There was your first. Now we're just going to double crochet like normal. So there was 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, but look, I'm out of rows. I'm out of stitches. Where do I go? This is when people have the most problems as well in crocheting, and their beautiful crochet turns into a triangle and they didn't want it to be a triangle. It's because you're missing a stitch. You have to count this stitch right here. So you go in and you're going to go in, basically yarn over, just go into the side of the stitch like we were going into our chain 2s before. Go into that, go up 2, go up 2. So now what you're doing is you're keeping the integrity, you're keeping your 5 stitches. So I'm going to show you that other trick again, because you already know how to double crochet now. So let's do the new one. Without chaining, turn your work, go into the same hole as the first stitch, go in there, pull up a loop. You have 2 on your hook now, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, if I went back into both of those loops, I'd take my stitch completely out. So I don't want to do that. I want to go into just this first loop over here. I'm going to skip this loop. I'm going to go into the front of this, pull up a loop, then pull through 2. I have now done a stack stitch, which is a little wider, but it's nice and sturdy. Now I'm going to continue to double crochet like I normally would. Double crochet across. I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I've got to come over here. This is the one that's hard to see. This is kind of like your chains. So I'm going to yarn over, go into this tiny hole, just like we did going into our chains. Pull up my loop, go through two, go through two. And you can see this gives you a really nice straight edge right there. Let's do that again. Turn your work, go into the first hole, go right into the hole where your first stitch is, going into that hole, pulling up a loop, pull through. That's a single crochet. Now I can't go back through both of those because it would come out. So I'm going to skip this loop. I'm going to just go into the front of this loop. So I'm forgetting this one underneath, just going through there, pulling up a loop. That gives me two. And that gives me my one. So using a stacked stitch kind of gives you a really nice straight edge and a nice straight line, tight stitches. If you do not want to do this, then just continue with the double crochets. So for the next row, I will do a normal double crochet. So we're double crocheting here still across. I'm out of places to go because I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got to get my 5. I got to go into the side of this stitch here. Yarn over, go in through, pull up a loop, go through 2, go through 2. So if I want to just do my regular, chain 2, turn. You don't want to go in there. You want to go into your next one. Double crochet, that's 2, 3, 4, and I still have to do 5, so I've got to go into this side. Yarn over, go into the side of that stitch, pull up your loop, go through 2, go through 2. I would do it twice. So now we're at, this is what our regular normal double crochet row looks like. I'm counting this as my first stitch. So I'm not going to go in here. So there's 1, yarn over, 2, 1, 2, 3. I've got one more here. This is 4. And I've got to go into this side here. So I'm just finding a spot to go in there. Pull up the loop, go through 2, go through 2. So you can see, you can kind of see the difference. There's going to be a little gap, a little bigger hole on each side as you go up. Doesn't matter, doesn't make it any less sturdy. You know, really doesn't look all that much different. You know, this is just a little bit more zigzaggier compared to the straightness of that one. Again, personal preference, and you know, you've learned an advanced stitch now called a stack stitch. Kind of cool. So what you would do is you would continue all the way up and around. If you don't mind the little ridge on the one side, you make your strap as long as you want it. And it's a good thing to put your water bottle in it, put it around your body. Are you going to be able to wear it across your body, which is nice because that takes some of the weight off, or just on your shoulder? You know, wear it the way you're going to want to wear it. See how long and where you want it. Do you want it to come up above your hip, below your hip, all the way down to your knee? You know, wherever you want your water bottle to hang, that's how long you make your strap. Once you get your strap the length you need, you're going to attach it. I am not going to continue on with this one. I'm going to jump over to the yellow one. I purposely left this one open to do that. So with this one, I would just continue to go as long as I wanted and then connect it in. And remember, I said, if you don't want the look of a stitch. When you're finished with your yarn, whenever you're finished with the project, and this is always the end, you make your loop big, you either cut your yarn, or if your ball's small enough now, grab your ball. I'm not done with this yet, so I'm not gonna cut it. So I'm just gonna make my loop big enough, pass it through, and then pull. And what that does is that finishes your stitch out. You do not need to knot it again. If you want, you can. You're gonna want to leave at least about this much of a yarn where you've cut it. And then either with your crochet hook or with a blunt knitting eye needle for fiber crafts with a blunt needle, you work it through your stitches. I usually like to go through, you know, my first set of stitches there. Then I kind of slide. I like to leave a longer tail. Then I kind of slide down. You just want to hide your tail. You'll do the same thing with the tail at the bottom. And if you were going to do one strap, two strap, however long you wanted that to be, you end it. What you would do for this one is you would take, once you've cut it and you have to work on your second strap, I'm gonna take a little bit of yarn out of here. The way to join your yarn, and this would be a way too, if you wanted, say you use straight colored yarn, variegated yarn, say you wanted stripes, even if you were following the mesh pattern, you want different colors to go in through here. Anytime you want to change colors, find your spot. I usually leave a tail about that long, stick it down there, hold it with your finger, pull up a loop, chain one. Now you're ready to roll. And then you'll just have this end to hang in. It's as easy as that. So if I were wanting to not have the ridge, I would have put that in half. I saw, okay, this is where I have to start. For this one, personally, if I was gonna, do I wanna do that? No, I guess I'll go right in. So I would chain two. I was gonna say, I was thinking putting a single crochet row here, but then it'd be a little off from the other side. So I would just chain two, yarn over, and then 1, 2. This is the third double crochet, the fourth double crochet, and now the fifth, because I chose to do 5. So that's how you start your second strap. And then I would continue it up until the length that I wanted and then connect the two together at the top. So this is what it would look like without a ridge. So you see that ridge, ridgeless. To show you what it looks like with a ridge, even though this is not the length of the strap that I want, we're gonna close it off anyway. It truly does not matter. I know the pattern, I think, said end with a right, you know, with your loop on one of the sides. I don't even remember what, because I didn't write it down. Really doesn't matter what side you stop it on, the right or the left. Doesn't matter, because you're going to do the same thing. So you have your loop. I'm folding, I'm laying my water bottle flat, and I'm evening it up, and I'm going to say, all right, make sure you don't twist it so it becomes a Mobius. You don't want to twist it, because then you'd have a permanent twist. You want to just fold it over and then bring it down here and line it up. And I happen to end on this row, so my loop is over here. I know I've got to start here. I'm going to take my crochet hook. I'm going to go through this stitch, because that's what it was lining up through. I'm going to make that loop small again. I'm going to pull this loop through. So I'm kind of connecting it. So I just basically took my crochet hook where I wanted it to go, poked it through, grabbed this loop, I pulled it through. Now, so that's one connection. Well, so now I'm going to turn it, since I started this way, I'm going to just turn it for myself and go this way. I know I've got to go, this is my next V, go through there, find the corresponding V here, grab the yarn, pull through both of those stitches, and then through that loop. And as I said, this yarn was really cheap and it split on me, so you can see what it looks like when it splits, but you just put it back together. So basically what you're doing is you're just slip stitching through those. So I can pull that bigger. I'm going to go through that V. I'm going to go through that V. I'm going to put my yarn through, pull it through. If it's easier to go one to one, do that. Pull it through, go through just the first one, then pull it through, keeping that on your hook. It's a little fussy. Then pull it through the second one and pull it through there. So it's a fussy way. But you're going to go through both of those loops, both of those. So now I've got it kind of connected this way. Grab your yarn, pull it through the one, pull it through this one, pull it through both. I keep splitting, I'm sorry. Pull it through both, tighten it up. So I've gotten that one connected. So now I have to go through my next one. Go through that one, go through that one, pull your loop through, pull your loop through, pull your loop through. So we're just slip stitching. This is my last one. Going through here, going through here, pulling a loop through, pulling a loop through, pulling a loop through. So that finishes it off. And I'm going to just make this loop big so you can see it instead of cutting it, because I still need to make my strap longer. So I'm just putting my ball through, pulling it to close that stitch. If I was really done, I would cut probably about that and then work my yarn through the back. So you can see with doing this, it gives a little bit of a ridge right there. She also, I almost forgot, she added an extra step, which you can do or you don't have to do it. If you want to reinforce this top even a little bit more, she's having you slip stitch all the way around the top, through this strap, and all the way through the back. So you would not have pulled your yarn through. So I will take that back. So you're going to pretend you didn't cut it. Again, this step is not necessary. She's just adding a little bit more reinforcements to the top of the holder. All right, so I have got, hopefully, I've got a live stitch now again. So pretend I didn't do that last step. So here I had just slipped through my last stitch. She wants you to slip through everything. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull my yarn through. I wanna work this way, be easier. Go through, pull through, pull through. Go through the top V, pull through, pull through. So as you can see, that's why I kind of feel this step is a little unnecessary. You're not adding length. Excuse me, you're not adding height by doing this. You're just reinforcing it a little bit more. I am going to continue all the way over to just the strap to show you how to do that, because that's a little confusing when you get to that part and you say, how am I supposed to do this? And I will just say, I hate this yarn because it constantly splits. So again, I'm not single crocheting. I am just slipping through the top V's of all of these stitches till I get to where my other strap is. Make sure you go through both V's. All right. If you look back, you can see it just kind of gives it a topper, but you can't really see that you've really done anything. It doesn't really look any different. When you get to your other strap, this was already attached because we started up from that side. So this, again, a little fussy. Your yarn is going to stay on the outside of this. You just look for the holes. So I've been through this one already. At the bottom of my double crochets, my first row of single crochets, here's my first row of double crochets. There's the hole that connects them. I'm going to go from the back forward, yarn over, pull it through, pull it through. I'm going to go to my next hole. There it is. You can see the double crochet, single crochet. I'm going to go through that hole, pull it through, pull it through. I've got another one right there. Go through the hole, yarn over, pull it through, pull it through. I'm almost to the end. There's my end. Go through, pull it. Try to get my strap out of the way there for you. Pull it through, pull it through. This is kind of borderline, so you're going to kind of, you just look for the hole. There's the hole. Go through, pull it through, pull it through. So now you've gone through your strap, and now you're back to your top single crochet stitches where you've started. You go all the way to the edge of, all the way around to here, to the edge of there, and then finish off. You can see it gives, by doing that, you can't really see it, but there's like a little bump line that goes through. That just reinforces it a bit. Gives a little reinforcement to the strap here so it doesn't stretch as much. Still doesn't really make it look the same as that. You can see there's that little ridge I was talking about. There's your difference, how that is completely smooth because we're starting right from there, whereas this one has your ridge. This side does not. This side does not. So it's your own personal preference. I don't think that is really all that noticeable. That doesn't bother me that it's there. But again, it's your choice. If you want to have the nice, you know, it does look a little bit better. If you want the nice smooth strap on both sides, once you get this strap halfway to the length that you want, tie it off, come over here, join your yarn like we did with the slip stitch, and then just start doing your strap up here, whether it be the double crochet all the way around or your stacked single crochets as your stitch. Those go all the way up. And then just like we slip stitched, you're gonna do the same thing. You could either sew it with the needle or say this was long enough to connect. I wouldn't tie this end off. I would just slip stitch once it was the right length. And as you can see, I would have cut this here. What I would probably do is make sure I ended up on this side So I had my loop there, and I'm going to show you that because that's going to just save you a little bit of stress. Let's just end on this side. So there's, go through 2, go through 2, 2, 2. Come on. 2, 2, and then you're at your point where you have to go through your side. Go through my side stitch, yarn over. Go through my side. A little sloppy, but I'm going to take this out anyway. Go through 2. Go through 2. All right, so you've got 2 rows there. Say I've continued my strap from both sides. You're going to line them up together in the same way we did the slip stitching. Easiest way to do it. Line both ends up like that. You're already connected, so you've got to find your corresponding hole. Pull your yarn through both of those. So pull it through there. Pull it through there. You're going to go into your next hole. Find your next hole over here. We already did that first one. We're here. Pull through both of those holes. Pull through there. Find your next hole, pull through those, go through that hole, down here, go through there, pull through both, and then towards your edge and your edge, on the sides of both of those. Pull through, pull through, pull through. So then that is if you don't want the ridges on the sides, then you have just a tiny little ridge at the top. Doesn't look bad at all, and that would be at the top of your strap. And then to finish your work, again, you make your loop big. You either cut your yarn first or just make it big enough for your yarn ball to pass through. Pass it through, grab it, pull, and you have finished it off. So that would be a big long, you would imagine that as a big long strap. And that is how you make a water bottle. Woo, we got through it. So hopefully that was clear for everyone. I hope I've inspired you a little bit to play with this. So thank you. If you have any questions, you can leave questions there and I will check it periodically and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.